Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ET Now's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center on every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight, we're bringing you one entire half an hour of questions that are being answered by our experts tonight. First up in studio, we have Anita Belani. She's the CPO of Gaja Capital. We also have tonight Sunil Gupta. He is, of course, an angel investor. Anita, Sunil, thank you very much for being here tonight to run us through all the questions that have come in, a whole host of questions. The first one I understand is GST related. That's still not going to settle down for just a little bit. Our first question tonight is coming to us from Carol Pinto. Carol has written to us on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow and ET Now, is where you too can send us your questions. Carol says she's a platform for artists and crafters, and she says they teach skills to learners. Almost all of the artists, she says, are non-GST registered dealers and artists who produce handmade products like handmade soaps, etc. Given the nature of this business, she says they end up paying GST for their artists as they want to keep the workshop fee reasonable for the customer. Her question tonight for our experts: how do they plan a model where they, which is her business, as well as the artisans, are at a comfortable arrangement as far as the financials are concerned?
Yeah, you know, GST Council fortunately recently have deferred the reverse charge mechanism for handicraft and handloom business. Having said that, you know, this is primarily for paying the GST on behalf of unregistered GST suppliers. Now, if he's a platform, e-commerce platform, then obviously he has to pay that 1% TCS, so there is no escape from that. Yeah. So that will continue as it is in terms of the GST compliance. But yes, right now, because of reverse charge mechanism being deferred, he doesn't have to pay for the unregistered businesses. Yeah.
Okay. But you know, GST is here to stay, so you have to find a solution to your problem, and it's not sustainable to keep on taking the hit. So, you know, and the customers also over a period of time have understood that there is something called GST, and you need to, you know, push it back to the customers, because otherwise it will become an unsustainable business. Sure. So my advice to Carol would be that, you know, start to do this, you know, slowly, so that you're passing on the impact to the customers. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, Carol, the advice for you tonight from our experts is that you will need to pass on this cost to your customers, because otherwise it's not going to be financially sustainable. Our next query is coming to us from Alok Mishra. Alok has sent us this email to say, how do they balance between product development and funding of businesses, especially in the initial stages of a startup? His question for our experts tonight, he wants to know about companies who fund startups like us. So, the second part is a question we answer quite often, but this is an interesting question on product development and funding of the business for a startup. You know, for a business, it's a chicken and egg situation. You cannot just say that, you know, I'm going to only focus on product development, because till you really get out there and get customers, product development is of no use, right? I mean, you know, you have to balance both, because for you to continue to excel in your product development area and to bring out new products into the market, you need to find the customers who will buy that. So running your business parallelly with product development as your agenda is very critical. So, you know, focusing on the metrics, focusing on collections, focusing on your working capital, making sure costs are low, so that you can focus on product development is very important. Okay. Funding, of course, you know, we have talked about it a lot, but there are so many different avenues today. You know, there are NBFCs that focus on small businesses. I know the interest costs are high, but, you know, for you to really maximize that, and then depending on what kind of business this is, it's hard to make out. But, you know, there are angel networks, there are high net worth individuals, there are family offices that are looking for opportunities to invest in good businesses. Sure.
See, I would only add to that is that because startup has a less of funds, so he should optimally invest first in terms of developing product, kind of minimum viable product. Once he tests it, validate with the customer, and then he can incrementally deploy investment in perfecting the product down the line, rather than putting the whole funding, whole money in the full product development and then go to the market. Yeah. Sure.
Alok, that's in response to your question. Thanks very much for sending that in. All right, let's quickly take in our next query. And this is a call that's coming to us from the line of Jayant. Go ahead, Jayant.
I'm Jayant from Bit for Best Technologies. We are a young B2B procurement startup which works on a reverse auction model. Okay, So I've got two questions. First one is regarding the scale up of our startup. How smartly we can get more users in, a quick time, you can say. And the second one is it wise to outsource the vendor acquisition to any external partner? And the second question will be regarding the technical adaptability. How can we educate our users or potential users to adopt technology and come on board from using the tech platform?
In terms of helping the kind of buying process, obviously he has to have a proper user interface and navigating that in 3 clicks, the customer is able to buy that particular product or services from his platform. Yeah.
Sure. Just to add to what Sunil just said, if you're really looking at third party, just like an external agency to get you your vendors, basically you have to do a cost benefit analysis, whether it is, viable for you to, because these can be quite expensive. So you have to really figure out, can you afford them, and what is the benefit you're getting out of them? Is this going to really be, viable in the long run? So that's very important for him to really evaluate, because these agencies are not cheap, which will give you databases and give you access to, different kinds of clients. And the other thing for him to, on the technology side, he really needs to look at, what is it that he's trying to achieve through that technology? Because, it's easy to say that, technology is an issue. So it's very important to really figure out the bottom line in both these areas.
All right. And as far as the brand development that he's talking about? So he's basically saying that people are reluctant to use the product after they've explained it, which I presume is a challenge for a small company. Yeah,
the way to this is a change is always an issue. If I'm using something that is working for me, I will say, why do I have to change? Because everything is just working out fine. It's about really doing free webinars, maybe to help people understand what the new product is about, get some mind share. When people see value in something through a webinar or through industry events, going and showcasing your product. There are many industry events where you can take a booth and, really talk about your product in such a way that people that are coming there will see some value, and you may get new customers like that as well.
All right, Jayant, a very detailed answer for you. Thanks very much for calling in with that. Our next query is an email coming to us from Priya Desai. Priya has written in to us to say they're an advanced metering infrastructure company. She says they have the largest number of installations in the country. Her question tonight for our experts, if there's any support available for MSME organizations. Let's talk about funding specifically for someone who's in the infrastructure, the traditional space. But let's also possibly talk about brand building and consumer awareness for a customer and an industry really like this.
This is such a broad field. Yeah. Again, it's about, first of all, targeting your customers. Who's your target market? Your TG is very important. And once you've really figured out that TG, there are so many, industry bodies. There are chambers of commerce. There are, other events that you can actually go to, because there is no shortcut to this. You have to keep chipping away at it so that your product is out there, because it's a, it's a very broad market.
Sure.
So I would say it's very important to be part of the right forums and being in front of the right decision makers through these forums.
Okay. So Sunil, industry associations would be
industry association, road shows of MSMEs, and for finance, approaching SIDBs of the world will definitely help. For the smart meter business, the good news is, if she is in the smart business, there is a scheme called Saubhagya scheme where energy for all is going to be there. So there's going to be huge requirement of metering equipments around the whole country. So if she can get that, there will be probably some amount of promotional and subsidy may also happen down the line for meter business.
Time for a break on this special episode where we are answering your questions non-stop. Much more on the other side. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're bringing a special episode, 30 minutes of non-stop answering the questions that our viewers have sent us. Take a look at some of the questions that our experts are answering tonight. Himanshu Bansal has sent us this query on our Facebook page to say he's a branded network of standardized multi-brand service centers in India. He says they have a network of over 90 service centers across the north of India. His question tonight for our experts is with respect to electric vehicles entering the industry, with over 20 new OEM brands set to enter the market by 2030. His question: what should brands do to quickly set up the necessary after-sales networks, and also how they can use the organized multi-brand after-sales industry to achieve this goal?
Go ahead.
See, the car maintenance business is going to go drastic change in the coming years.
Yeah.
Because of electric, because of EV vehicles coming up, the number of components get reduced, and even the kind of repair and maintenance requirement for those kind of vehicles will be very, very different. Because there will be no oil changes, there will be no exhaust system kind of thing. So, you know, and the number of components reduces, so the maintenance cost also reduces. The other challenge which he'll have to face is that there is no standardization which is coming up in the emerging EV manufacturing. So everyone will come with their own standards. There is nothing like, you know, you buy this spare part and fit into this one. So everyone will have its own spare parts and the product definition. So initially it will be a challenge to maintain those kind of variety of spare parts, but down the line, obviously, things will get standardized and there will be kind of interchangeability of parts for the EV vehicles also.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, I was reading about Tesla, and so Tesla is the game changer in this industry. And basically, Elon Musk says that I don't want any outsourced or franchised operations for my vehicles, because, you know, today they feel in the US, Tesla feels that there isn't enough mind share. So, you know, because petrol cars or fossil fuel cars are being sold in larger numbers compared to the, you know, battery operated ones or electric vehicles, he says that they don't get enough selling, you know, that's happening through these centers. Also, the way Tesla is built, it's very different from, of course, fossil fuel cars. And he says they are not experts in this area. Charging is is another area. So I don't think what Elon Musk is saying is sustainable, you know, in the long run, because the other thing is petrol stations, as we know today, will be history in some years. So everybody has to look at, you know, changing the way they operate.
Sure.
And you cannot get away from franchise operations for maintenance of your electric vehicles. It has to happen. So for him, it is very important to start planning, because this is going to hit us before we know it.
Okay.
And, you know, there are so many changes in regulations that are happening. So just like Sunil said, there are going to be, you know, lots of changes that he has to work for, and he should start preparing.
Sure.
There will be three major maintenance activities: battery, the electronic controls, and what do you call that, motors. There will be three major components in that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a great industry to be in, but like experts are suggesting, start your planning well in advance, because this industry is going to explode. Email that's coming to us from Samir Srivastava. Samir says they offer a wide range of consulting services for several industries. He says they've got the necessary tools and expertise to help companies grow their business and learn how to properly manage expansion or your next project. However, he says there's a huge void between policy makers and the decisions that policymakers are announcing, of course, and the actual business implementation. His question tonight for our experts: how do you evaluate branding and marketing costing for MSMEs or SMEs given the conditions that exist? There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect in terms of policymakers and branding, but let's address you know, policy around MSMEs. There's been a lot that's changing. I want your expert opinion on whether it's changing fast enough, and then secondly on branding and marketing costs.
See, policy as by nature is very bureaucratic, democratic, and it's a long drawn process, you know. Sure. While the business cycles and innovations are happening very fast, there will always be a lag between the policy and the implementation of the real business. Having said that, this is going to be a given thing in terms of there will be always a gap between the two. Now, in terms of branding, obviously the branding is a whole process, right from name to logo to website to SEO to marketing to advertisement. So it typically depends upon what kind of target segment you want to address, and the cost depends upon the various components of these things, to what level you want to achieve for those target segments. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with Sunil, and of course he's in the consulting business, which is even harder, you know, in the sense that, you know, the MSME rules and laws really don't consider the consulting business as a real business. You know, it's more like vapor, as we say. But consulting is, of course, a business, and you have to. It's a very difficult business to market, because, you know, you're in a cluttered space. There are many consultants who are offering different kinds of consulting services. So for him, it's really about finding his target customers. You know, and saying, this is my A category customers, this is my B category, and this is how I really go after them. And you know, for this you need to be, you know, a thought leader. You need to give you know, lectures, or, you know, be sponsoring events or doing something so that your expertise is showcased. That's very important for him.
In developed markets, though, consulting is seen as the natural progression for the industry. You move away from your basic work to consulting services. Samir, that's in response to your question. Thanks for that email. It is slightly harder, of course, for consulting businesses, like our experts are saying, to raise funding, but it's an important business and a segment that you're in. Thanks for sending us that. Our next query is coming to us from Mohammed Shabir. He's written in to us on our Facebook page to say that he's a provider of IT, software and hardware services. So he's essentially a service provider. He says his main target group, one in tier 2 cities, how to plan marketing in these cities, as they're not open to using a service like his. If I can just add to this question, tier 1, I would presume that for a small business the challenge is different, trying to, you know, hold your own against multiple players, and in tier 2 possibly there's not enough understanding of why you need a service like his. Am I right? And, you know, if you can broad base it and maybe talk to viewers who are perhaps seeing the same sort of challenges.
See, this is a very competitive space to be in, because there are so many providers for the IT services companies. So my suggestion is, again, to identify, segment the customer base, do a research in terms of what current service providers are offering to those players where he is not able to reach them, and position your company more from the USP angle. The other way is obviously to, you know, to penetrate that market. Obviously, he may be running a small budget, so he can use some of these digital tools of social media to promote and increase his brand awareness. The other one which I would strongly suggest is to create an alliance and partnership with the existing service provider to this large company, and piggyback with them in terms of, you know, joining hands with them, because they have a relationship with those large customers. It's easy to, you know, get your services delivered to those channels of partnership and affiliates.
Okay.
You know, what Sunil is saying is absolutely right. And, you know, again, coming back to industry associations and chambers of commerce. But one thing that really works for consulting type or these kinds of companies which are small and are niche is to get a couple of advisory board members. And these sort of add credibility to your business, and also they open doors. So finding those kinds of people that are in your network who are able to support you is also, you know, very beneficial.
Okay. So Mohammed, do look at social media as your main ally when it comes to marketing your product, and also bringing more credible faces perhaps into your business, which will help you open those doors. Our next query is coming to us from Saneen Jiwali. Saneen has tweeted at us to say the manufacturers of garments, mainly dealing with jackets. Saneen says they use imported accessories largely, and their biggest challenge is when it comes to import. Many technologies or new innovation is not readily available in India, so they have to import it from China. Saneen's question is whether there's any alternative when it comes to import. You know, even as there's so much commentary around Chinese goods and Chinese imported goods, this is a practical problem that a lot of MSMEs are clearly facing.
Yes.
So my suggestion is that he should relook and redesign his product, let's see, his garments around the indigenous material. You know, that's one way of solving his problem, so that his dependence on the import decreases. The other one is, you know, he should identify something kind of equivalent material sourcing requirements from the existing marketplace. I'm sure there must be some avenues where he can source those kind of alternate material from the local sources.
Okay, sure.
You know, the Chinese products are cheap. We can't get away from that, right? So I mean, that's a given. But if you're reading the literature that's coming out today, you know, the news, the Chinese products are also, you know, it's like raising the bar. sort of, they're going up the value chain.
Sure.
So China is not viable any longer. In the next 15-20 years, it will become quite unviable.
Okay.
Countries like Bangladesh actually are replacing what you were getting from China. So that's closer home, and I think we may have different kind of treaties with Bangladesh from a business perspective. We should explore that. And I'll actually agree with Sunil. If you can find it in India, that's the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Saneen, then do look at indigenous sources that you can tap. Completely out of time on this segment. Sunil, Anita, thank you both, as always, for coming down tonight.
Thanks.
All right, if you have any questions for our experts or you have any feedback on the show, you can always write in at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com, tweet at me at Sunand_J or LOT_ET now. You can also leave your questions on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, or call us on that number you see on your screen. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.